Okay. Good afternoon, everyone who is watching. This is the meeting of the Public Safety Subcommittee for the House Judiciary Committee. It is Monday, March the 4th at around 4:11 p.m. I apologize for our lateness. We had another committee that was meeting, the Family and Juvenile Law Subcommittee was meeting right before us. So we had to wait for them to complete their deliberations before we can begin. So I think we do now have a quorum of members here, and so we will go ahead and get started. And so the first bill that is on our agenda is House Bill 583, which is an administration bill filed by the Speaker by request of the administration to create a Center for Firearms Violence Prevention. And this bill has a number of co-sponsors. And so I know we have various individuals on the call on behalf of the administration. And so council, I'm not certain which one this is assigned to. If you want to just provide the committee with a brief summary of the bill, that would be great.
Sure. I just wanted to flag there is an amendment, and it's a simple amendment. The administration wanted to alter the title of the center, the name of the center, to the Center for Firearm Violence Prevention and Intervention. So that amendment was sent out to everybody. Basically, this bill creates a center for firearm violence prevention and intervention within the Maryland Department of Health. And the center has several responsibilities, but primarily is centered around reducing firearm violence, harm from firearm violence, and misuse of firearms in the state by partnering with different agencies within the state and stakeholders to implement certain policy approaches.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I don't know if members have any questions for the members of the administration that are here about this matter. I think we had an extensive bill hearing on this, if I recall correctly, with a number of different witnesses. Pretty much most of the witnesses were testified favorable on the bill. And so I know we have Dorothy Lenning here from yeah, for the Governor's Office of Crime and Prevention, who can probably answer any questions that you have for the administration. I don't think Secretary Scott is with us today, but I do see Miss Grant is with us, though I'm not certain. Yes, Assistant Secretary Marie Grant from the Department of Health is with us, though, as well as Heather Workin from the University of Baltimore School of Law Center for Criminal Justice Reform. And I'm not certain if I see Miles Hicks from the governor's office. I'm not certain if Eric Lukey is with us, but Miles can stand in for Eric, I'm sure. And I don't know if Melanie Shapiro is with us from the Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. But I think that's who we have with us joining us today. So do any members have any questions? Okay. Well, I do have a few questions that we did get. Oh, go ahead, Delegate Tolles. Hi, welcome. I know you were tied up in another thing.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was in another meeting and then I couldn't find the link. So my apologies.
No worry, we're just getting started. We're just getting started. So wanted to see if anyone had any questions for any of the folks here. I do have one question, I guess, maybe just to kind of start us off. One, thank you for the amendment to add in the word intervention. I think that is important since that is one of the goals of this particular program. I guess I had three sort of questions. The first thing I guess I wanted to kind of get some clarification on, because I know during the bill hearing, we talked about how broad the bill is. And, and I think partially that was on purpose for a variety of different reasons. But I was worried, I guess, in a couple of places where maybe the language wasn't as clear as maybe it could be, or maybe it could be tightened up a little bit. In the first place that I sort of had a question about, and I guess it's just more, I don't think it's necessarily, I don't know, what's the word, Holly? You'll, anyway, so the place I'm looking at is on page 2, kind of line 28. And it mentions about having the state or local agency to ensure a whole of government approach to reducing firearm violence. And I guess my curiosity is kind of what is defined as a whole of government approach. I don't know if that's language that we use in other parts of our code. And so I don't know if maybe Miles or maybe Ms. Lanning wants to address that. But that was kind of my first question that I had.
Yeah, I think this might be some of our talking points making its way into the bill. One thing that we do is, you hear us say partnership a lot, and that's because we do believe in having, as many state agencies involved in the process as possible. So I can see that. I wouldn't say that this is something that's been used in code before, or something that if we do choose to clarify that language, I don't think we'd take that as a unfriendly amendment. I would just say I think I would chalk that one up to that's language we use in our office that I just think found its way into the bill.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Delegate Taylor, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking at the fiscal note, and the bulk of it is for contractual services. I just have a clarifying question with regard to the 6.7 million for a data-driven, strategic, place-based, and evidence-based firearm violence prevention activities. It's a mouthful. Just wondering, can you give me an example of what something like that might look like?
Sure. I think it comes in a lot of different ways. So you have the people who are, of course, in neighborhoods who might actually be doing the interventions like ROCA. I know another member of our panel is Members Prevent Gun Violence. They have a grief support program in an elementary school that serves 17 kids in Baltimore City. I know that could be stuff or areas where we can expound upon. And then also, if you look at our great research universities in the state, I know we have Heather from UB on, but you also have University of Maryland that just started their own program, and we also have Hopkins, who also was on our panel, who also has their own center to look into this. So, with all
Delegate Tolles, if you can meet, there we go. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, but if you look at all of the people even in that landscape, I think one thing you'll always hear over there is, the lack of funding specifically for research to be done on the topic, and specifically longitudinal studies too. And then also when you look at who do we want in this conversation, we have great universities. We'd love to get some of our HBCUs involved in that conversation as well, right? So all of those are places where I think we can expand on and really dig deep on the issue. And again, this isn't something this isn't an issue that we solve tomorrow. This is an issue that is amongst us right now. We know we're going to have it's going to be a long time until we get everything right. But I think that's when you're talking about that bulk of money, there's a lot of different places involved in this that we have to look at.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if there's like going to be a fund created where these organizations or programs would be able to apply for the funding, or maybe it's a combination of, you guys will be, doing maybe a bid solicitation or something like that. That would say, look, we're looking for this type of firearm prevention activity. You get where I'm going. So it maybe be a combination of that. How do you see that folks being able to take advantage of this?
Yeah, I also see Marie's hand up. I want to make sure that I let also MDH, who's going to be doing this great work, also has a say in this as well.
Thanks so much, Miles.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair, and thank you, Delegate Taylor, for the question. Yeah, just to add a little bit more, I think to your point, it's a both. It's a both, right? So we do envision that some of that contractual capacity will be to build up infrastructure and IT specifically related to firearm violence prevention. This is both for homicides and suicides, right? So it really is for both in addressing prevention. We do think that there, will be funds, to Miles's point, for academics, for research, but also grants, yes, to locals, and entities that are really able to, and would probably look like an RFA process, to your point, Delegate Taylor, where this funding could be available to organizations to implement place-based strategies.
Thank you.
Delegate Valentine and then Delegate Crutchfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, Delegate Taylor asked my exact question, but I do want to expand upon that question with the next page of the fiscal note that talks about escalating costs up by fiscal 29 of could be as much as 25 million. And my question would be, infrastructure and IT would be startup cost, I understand, but then such a high escalating amount of money. If maybe Ms. Grant could speak to that.
I'm so sorry, could you point me to where in the fiscal note that you're looking at?
I am on page 5, ongoing expenditures for the center, where it talks about possible ongoing costs and escalating costs.
Okay. Yeah, so I think I think those are obviously going to be dependent on appropriations from the budget, right? I think they really are looking at increasing grant awards, right? So there will be the ongoing personnel costs, which are a relatively small portion of the anticipated budget for the center, and anticipated as part of the 10 million that's currently included in the governor's budget. And some of that contractual work for this fiscal year will be that infrastructure work. Again, I think the indication in the fiscal note is really the increase, the potential for increased grant awards to local communities and out to our academic partners. But that is also going to be totally dependent on, first of all, the governor's budget, and then what, of course, the General Assembly passes as part of that governor's budget. So I think that's where that's coming from.
Thank you.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure I understand the oversight of what is really going to be, as part of the sort of the where the Gun Center will actually be housed, and also sort of the reporting chain, because I know that it mentions in the bill is going to be in consultation with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services. But what is that oversight going to look like? I know there's an executive director, but can anybody explain that a little bit more for me?
I can start, Delegate Crutchfield, and of course defer to Miles too, as well. The center is going to be sitting in the Department of Health, most likely in our public health services area. So it will have oversight, first of all, from our executive leadership team, including the Secretary of Health. And then it will be subject to all the oversight that any of our constitutional or our state agencies are subject to. So reporting through to the governor's office, reporting out to you all, subject to audit, all of those typical oversight functions for the major oversight agency are going to provide oversight. But I just want to say too, it is going to be firmly ensconced in the Department of Health. The Secretary of Health cares deeply about getting this right and is going to be keeping a really close eye on this work, and is going to be very involved, but also, again, subject to all the traditional other checks and balances we have as part of our state agencies.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other additional questions from members? So I do have a question again for the administration. So like I said, there was one section of the bill where I just wasn't certain about the definition. The other section, in same page, I guess just the next section down, starting on line 30, going into line 31. And it says from the solicit or consider recommendations from, comma, at a minimum, and then it has a colon, And then it goes into communities disproportionately impacted by firearm violence and public health experts. And then it goes on to the next section on or before about the reporting requirements regarding creating the preliminary state plan for the public health approach, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if it may just be better just to maybe say something. I'm just proposing something out there, and Holly, you can correct me if this is not appropriate from a drafting standpoint. Something to the effect of maybe solicit and consider recommendations from communities disproportionately impacted by firearm violence and public health experts, and maybe create a subsection 3 that would simply say any other experts that the executive director shall determine. Just to kind of tighten that up a little bit. I don't know. Just wanted to see if that
Yeah,
works
I
for the
might.
administration.
Yeah, I personally don't have any issues with that language. I know this is a specific couple of lines that we worked with and got from advocates and in that section. I know. So with that, I know a large part of this is going to be heavily dependent upon the executive director to host those public meetings, to do the community outreach, and to leverage those contacts that we've had with the people who are working to pass this bill, and the people who already established different programs as well. So I think that was more so assumed, and if you want to put it in the bill, I don't think that that's a bad thing to do.
Okay, just to kind of give a little bit more clarity, I guess, because it says at a minimum. I don't know, Holly, I don't know if you have any comments about that or.
No, I can easily add that in to the amendment that we already have and just make it one comprehensive one. But that sounds fine if you want to make sure that that's something that's included.
Okay. Yeah, I just think it'd just be good, just so for clarity's sake. And then the second, or I should say third question mark, I just want to make sure that you all were intentionally using the word may on page 3, line 14, as opposed to a shall. And this is just talking about the various things that the center would offer. So it lists about, let me just see here, 7 different items that the center would, I guess the activities of the center. One was offering training and technical assistance to state and local agencies, healthcare professionals, and community and faith-based organizations to increase capacity to implement evidence-based firearm prevention strategies. Number 2 was issue best practice guidance and model processes in consultation with affected communities regarding implementation of the evidence-based firearm violence prevention strategies. Number 3 was in consultation with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, or any successor agency to facilitate cross-jurisdictional data and information sharing. And then, I mean, you can read the rest, but I guess that was my question, because it sounds like you want to make those items optional, but not necessarily required. So I just wanted to make sure the intent of the administration is clear.
Yeah, just for that section, I would say that just because, again, this is a new approach that we're taking in the state, if we lock ourselves into shall language there, this is what we shall be doing. If we find a gap that's bigger than 1, we can't navigate if those are all shalls. So that's why we did choose may language for that.
Okay, great. And I see Delegate Pastor has her hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we go back or stay with those points that the chair just pointed out, those 7, if you're not using shall, and I understand why you're not, based on what you just said, you don't want to lock yourselves in. Can you just offer, because these are very heavy things, and these are the areas I would think, after all of the examinations have been done and the meetings have been had, et cetera, that community folks and those of us in the legislature would like to be able to wrap ourselves around as to what will be done to lessen that gun violence. So what are some of the things that you see possibly happening in any one or all of those 7 areas?
I'll just give a couple of examples, and I mentioned a few earlier. So we obviously talked about partnerships with with our research university, the research universities across the state, I think that falls solely into some of these points. And I'll even point to specifically public awareness campaigns, right? That can come in a lot of different ways. That could be specifically something that is created by the center and it's something that they're pushing out, or it could be new data that's being availed to us by the federal government, or new data or a study that's being brought forth by one of the great universities in the state. So I think all of those are just a few examples of how the center could actually assist in a couple of different ways in that arena as well, when trying to disseminate information, best practices and information to the public.
Okay.
And also I think Marie wanted to piggyback back off my answer as well.
Sure, Ms. Grant, if you wanted to add to that.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Just to add to I know this data-driven approach, the sharing data, the working with locals to really understand the places that are most hard hit by gun violence is something that as the department we're really dedicated to as well. So in terms of really sinking in about what this work will be engaged in, that's going to be a really key initial step that's really going to drive our strategy and outcomes around this work.
Okay, thank you. May I ask
Sure.
another question about that? This is about then number 2, because I came into this question understanding what both of you have said. It's very clear, but I guess my question is, how do you take all of that, the data, the information, everything that has been collected, and then work with the various agencies and the community to lessen the violence, the gun violence? Because I'm sure that after conversations with a couple of you, that is our bottom line. So if you look at number 2 and model processes in consultation with effective community regarding the implementation of evidence-based firearm violence prevention strategies. So what, when we're talking strategies, those are the do things that are going to change what's happening in those hard hit communities. So I guess I'm trying to get to what kinds of things are you looking forward to doing and saying to these communities and others about how we are going to use that information to lessen that violence? I'm sort of redundant here, but that's my question.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to highlight here, and that's the outreach that we're doing with the advocates on the ground as well. So some of them have there's a wide range of programs. For example, you have hospital-based programs that are very common in Baltimore City, but if you go down to Prince George's County, you see less of them. So in conversations that we've had, and even in some of the budget hearings, how can we expand those, not just to Prince George's, but across the state? So that's an example, and let me know if I'm not answering your question. But that's just an example you see where you have a program in one place in the state that's fairly successful in doing the intervention, going bedside and talking to people, and taking that somewhere else and teaching people how to leverage those relationships in their community, as well as how to implement a program, is just one example of, policy and practice, and actually, getting in and meeting people where they are.
Okay, so that would be creating relationships inside of the communities. Did you say that?
That's part of it, yes. But then also is teaching people about programs that they don't currently have in their communities.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Delegate Phillips.
So I want to be clear. You're not attempting through the center to actually perform the prevention activities. The center is really the brain trust and the selection entity for collecting the data that helps us achieve these goals. I want to, because that's what I think I'm hearing. And I just want to be sure that I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing.
The short answer is yes.
Okay. That's how I read it. I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
All right. Any additional questions for our group here for House Bill 583? One last question. Ms. Warnken, did you want to add something to what was previously said?
Yeah, is it okay if I just make a quick point, Madam Chair? I just wanted to
Sure.
build on the really good information and examples that Miles has given. So if you take hospital-based violence intervention, for example, which is such a promising public health-oriented approach to addressing and reducing gun violence, we don't just have a situation in Maryland where there's kind of a justice by geography situation where there's programs exist in some areas of the state and not in others. They're also really difficult to implement well. So one, example, I think of a key activity of the center is supporting implementation science, bringing the evidence and the place-based and collaborative approach, hearing the experiences on the ground about how to make sure they are implemented effectively, because even that as a public health model is really complicated and requires a ton of community coordination to do right.
Thank you. Do any other members have any additional questions?
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be, are we going to hold this and discuss, or?
Yeah, I was just going to see if folks had any additional questions for the individuals that are here, and then if not, I was going to just let them know that I don't think we have any additional questions, and then we can do a motion and discuss further if folks have further discussion. But I just wanted to make sure folks get all their questions answered and any additional information that they may be looking for with regards to this bill.
So procedurally, there were a couple of recommendations. I think your point on the whole of government, I don't know if we were leaving that language.
I did have a suggestion. Yeah, I did have a suggestion on a change there. I apologize. Thank you, Delegate Phillips. So I was thinking maybe instead of saying a whole of government approach, maybe saying a whole, that's not what I intended. Maybe saying to ensure a multi-departmental approach to reducing firearm violence, since the word department is a defined word in the code. And so that's kind of what I was thinking there. I don't know if you have any feedback, either Ms. Grant or Mr. Hicks, on that.
That sounds fine to me.
Same, Madam Chair.
Would you like us to move that amendment, Madam Chair?
Yes, I was gonna, I think we talked about that one as well as the second amendment, adding the subsection number 3. Removing the words at a minimum, moving the comma and then the words at a minimum, starting on line 30, going to line 31 on page 2. And then on page 3, adding a subsection 3 that says after subsection 2, that just simply says any other groups that the executive director shall determine. I think those were the only amendments I was thinking of proposing. And Holly, that's something that you can just incorporate in the other amendment that we have before us?
Yep, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So you can,
all right.
Chair
go
Williams,
ahead,
when you're ready, you can just move all of the 2 that you just wanted me to make along with the administration's amendment together if you want.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll go into, so thank you all for being here. I think we have all of our questions answered. So really appreciate you all taking the time to join us this afternoon.
Can I just say that Holly is awesome?
Thank you very much, Delegate.
She is just incredible.
Thank you.
She is. She
Very
is
nice.
amazing.
Thank
We
you.
have very great analysts for our committee. All right. So I guess the first thing we need to take up are the amendments. And so according to council, we can do all three proposed amendments in one amendment. Oh,
I
I
would
said that
move
correctly.
the,
In
yep,
one
I would
motion.
move the amendments, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on the three amendments being proposed? Okay, not seeing any hands. I guess that all in favor, just say aye or raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, no opposed. All right, so the amendments have passed, and then I'll entertain a motion to move favorable with amendments.
Move favorable with amendments.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I will call the roll. Delegate Conway,
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield,
Yes.
Delegate Munoz is excused. Delegate Pastor,
Yes.
Delegate Phillips,
Yes.
Delegate Schmidt, I think is excused as well, if I remember correctly. Delegate Simpson,
Yes, and I really appreciate all the work on this bill. Great job.
Delegate Taylor,
Yes.
Delegate Tolles,
Yes.
Delegate Tomlinson,
No.
and Delegate Valentine.
No.
All right, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yays, 2 noes, and 2 excuses. So the bill moves favorable out of committee. All right, thank you, everyone. On that one, we have one more. I know it was not originally on our agenda. It just kind of popped up on our agenda at the last minute, but I think we might be able to get through this one pretty quickly. And so this second bill we have today is House Bill 593 with I was about to say Delegate Tomlinson, Delegate Hutchinson. You guys are right next to each other on my little Brady Bunch squares. Delegate Hutchinson, and this is the House Bill 593, Criminal Law Destroying Funerary Objects Statute of Limitations. And so I don't know if this is a Claire bill, if council could just give a brief summary.
Yes, it's my bill. This is Claire. Okay, so this bill extends the statute of limitations from 1 year to 5 years to prosecute a person for willfully destroying, damaging, defacing, or removing a funerary object or structure placed in a cemetery, or a building, wall, fence, railing, or other work for the use, protection, or ornamentation of a cemetery.
Okay. And that would be, I guess, I just want to make sure I'm clear here. So would that create a civil cause of action, or this is still, because I know above that it says that criminally it's a misdemeanor instituted within 1 year after the offense was committed. So I just want to make sure we're, oh no, it's a criminal penalty. Okay.
Yeah, it's just dealing with the crime. Because
Okay. But
normally
it would still be,
misdemeanors have to be prosecuted within 1 year, and this is just extending that to 5 years.
okay. But it would still stay as a misdemeanor. Is that correct, Claire?
Yes.
Okay. And we also have the bill sponsor here as well. So I don't know if folks have any questions either for Delegate Hutchinson or for council on this.
One question.
Okay.
Is this from
Yes.
the time that I'm trying to remember, is this crime based on notice or when the incident occurred?
Claire, do you want me to?
Yes, you can answer. Yes, you can answer, Delegate.
So there was an amendment too that basically outlined it, said when local authorities in fact knew or reasonably should have known of the violation. And that was provided to me by, I think, the recommendation of our state's attorney
Oh, okay.
to
I don't
So it
define
would be
when.
5 years from the time they knew or reasonably should have known.
That is correct.
Okay.
You-
Claire, do we have that amendment with the committee?
I don't. I never got that. I
Well,
don't think it was sent around to the committee.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
Claire, just so you know, it's 673926/1.
oh, okay, 6-7, I'm sorry, can you repeat that number, Delegate Hutchison?
673926/1.
Okay. All right, I will look for that amendment. I actually like that amendment. I think it does clarify Delegate Phillips' question. So I think that's super important. Delegate Taylor, I see your hand there.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to put it down. Yeah, it kind of answered my question because I have a situation in our district where, we found a whole cemetery that was defaced. And
Yes.
of course, that was 100 years ago. So just wondered if, somehow this might apply there, but apparently not. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know the one question I have, and I kind of spoke with the bill sponsor previously about this a bit. And Claire, you sort of alluded to this a little bit earlier about kind of the normal time frame for misdemeanors and kind of the normal statute of limitations time frame. And so it was kind of my thought process that generally they're usually no longer than 3 years in duration. And so I talked to the bill sponsor maybe about reducing this from 5 years to 3 years. Delegate Hutchison, is that something that you would be open to?
We're absolutely open to this. I actually had the library pull all the different statute of limitations, and I shared that with the family. We were all in agreement that 3 years is appropriate.
Okay. All right. And Claire, I just wanted to just also check with you to see if that would be consistent with other provisions in the code as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I knew there was a reason you asked me that question in the hearing, and so I think this all makes sense to keep it within the reason of where we are today. So that makes perfect sense.
Okay. All right.
I think, just Madam Chair, I think if it is when the government entity knew or should have known, actually already extends the time frame, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because we may or may not know when it actually occurred. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think so too.
Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Simpson.
So just for clarification, because I know this was where it was a family plot, right, on a property. And they didn't find out, of course, like until after COVID, that the people who owned the property had defaced or had pretty much, I guess, destroyed the whole cemetery, correct?
That is correct, yes.
But it wouldn't just apply to cemeteries that were on somebody's property. It would apply to any.
That is my understanding. And in fact, one of the amendments to the bill came from a cemetery out of Baltimore County.
So just walk me through, how would this have worked with the family, that inspired this? How would this work?
Well, I think that what would happen, and you take in consideration the COVID issue, the police were notified after COVID, well after the event had occurred. But because of some historical pictures they had, I believe they were able to determine that had happened at least a year prior. And so the state's attorney and the local sheriffs could not prosecute because 1 year had passed. So this would give them at least 3 years of, the possibility of somebody coming back, discovering it, notifying law enforcement, and then proceeding with, discovery of how that was destroyed.
And so this would give them kind of, it's not going to restore it. Is
And
that
there's nothing here that's, nothing here says that that would have to be restored, or that it would have to go through then, criminal court in terms of the person who did the destruction, and then what the outcome of that would be in terms of any restoration or fines.
okay? Thank you.
Thank you. And fines are allowed already in the code, Delegate Simpson, for this, it seems, so that's a possibility. Delegate Phillips.
And not only fines, if I recall, and I don't have the bill in front of me, but restitution is provided, correct? Is there an opportunity for restitution?
Not in my bill.
Okay, all right. But on the finding of a misdemeanor, well, no, it might probably has to be in the code. Maybe Holly or Claire can tell me on the finding of a misdemeanor in a criminal matter, does the court have latitude to require some type of restitution?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. And then the other piece, to Delegate Simpson's point, the one big thing that would be different with this particular situation is that if the law enforcement, said, hey, I saw a picture, or the last time you was there a year ago, so we don't know whether this happened more than a year ago. The big difference, I think, with this legislation is you could come back in and say, it may not have been reasonable for anyone to go check on that property. And so if they found it a year later, that would be the date that you would begin the clock for statute of limitations, unlike what happened to this family.
That is correct. That's my understanding.
All right. Any additional questions? Okay. I think we have two amendments that are being proposed. One is the amendment from the bill sponsor. And Claire, I don't know if you were able to jot that number down, if you were able to find that amendment. I wrote down 673926.
Yes, I have that number, but I haven't accessed it. Did you want me to somehow try to send that around to everybody right now, or?
Well, I was just thinking maybe we can incorporate the amendment with regards to reducing the 5 years down to 3 years into that same amendment. I don't know, whatever you think
Sure,
works
sure.
best
Yeah,
for,
that I could do that.
okay. Okay. All right. So then those are the two amendments that are on the table. I'll entertain a motion on the amendments or the proposed amendments.
Move a motion on both the amendments.
And second?
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposition to the amendments? Seeing none. All right. The amendments are adopted. Next, can I get a motion to adopt the bill favorable as amended?
Move favorable as amended.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, I'll just go ahead and call the roll. Delegate Conway?
Yes. Yes.
What was that, Delegate Conway? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Delegate Crutchfield?
Yes.
Okay. Munoz is excused. Delegate Pastor?
Yes.
Delegate Phillips?
Yes.
Schmidt is excused. Delegate Simpson?
Yes.
Delegate Taylor?
Yes.
Delegate Tolles?
Yes.
Delegate Tomlinson?
Yes.
And Delegate Valentine?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all, everyone. Those are the only two bills we have on our agenda for this week. Stay tuned. I have a sneaky suspicion we may have some more bills coming our way, but that's just my suspicion. As we have very robust agendas coming up in our committee over the next couple of days. So stay tuned. And this concludes the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for March 4th, 2024. Oh, I guess I need a motion to adjourn. Sorry, I was just leaving the meeting.
So moved. Motion for adjournment.
All right, thank you. All right, so we will see everyone next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.